Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something absolutely wild. We're going to unpack how a localized set of mysterious footprints transformed into a massive pop culture juggernaut over the last several decades. You know, Bigfoot is such a fascinating subject, not necessarily because of the biology, but because of what the creature actually tells us about ourselves. So today we're going to explore that cultural heyday starting in the 1970s and follow this legendary creature right into the digital age to see exactly how an obscure wilderness legend became a global commercialized icon. Let's get right into it. Here is our roadmap for the journey today. First, the 1970s media explosion. Second, from monster to guardian. Third, the digital Sasquatch. Fourth, reality TV and podcasting. And finally, number 5, the modern lore cycle.
Okay, so to really understand Bigfoot's cultural grip on us, we've got to rewind a bit and start with journalist Andrew Gonzoli. In 1958, he wrote a column in the Humboldt Times. He basically took this fun, honestly kind of dubious local logging story about giant footprints found in Northern California, and he just published it. He even wrote, "Are the tracks a human hoax, or are they actual tracks of a huge but harmless wild man?" As Gonzoli himself admitted later on, he literally just thought it made a good Sunday morning story. But man, it sparked an absolute global fascination. Literally overnight, the whole world had discovered Humboldt County.
And this is what really set it off. The tangible evidence. We're talking about those massive plaster footprint casts pulled straight from the California dirt. That physical proof absolutely ignited the public imagination. And honestly, it laid the perfect groundwork for mass media to just completely hijack the narrative. Almost in the blink of an eye, this hyper-local logging camp mystery became a full-blown national sensation, building the foundation for a brand new American monster. If we look at this timeline, it's actually pretty wild how Bigfoot's media milestones map so perfectly onto our changing societal interests over the last half-century. You go from that initial 1958 newspaper spark, right? Then into the gritty horror films of the 70s, straight into the family-friendly comedies of the 80s, all the way to the massive reality TV boom of the 2010s. The big takeaway here? Bigfoot didn't just survive changing times, he actively adapted to them.
Section 1. The 1970s media explosion.
Now, to really grasp what went down in the 70s, we need to talk about a concept called a lore cycle. This is basically an academic framework that describes how cultural figures and stories continuously mutate. Think of it like this. Society basically takes all its current anxieties, hopes, and fears and just projects them onto a mythological figure to help process them. It's like a giant cultural mirror. And Bigfoot? He's a textbook example of a lore cycle in action. A prime example of this is the massive 1972 hit, The Legend of Boggy Creek. This pseudo-documentary completely framed the creature as a primal, really dangerous monster. It was this super low-budget film about an Arkansas town being haunted by a shaggy giant, and let me tell you, it completely captivated an entire generation of kids. They were literally rushing to their local libraries to learn everything they could. It firmly solidified Bigfoot as this terrifying, unpredictable figure of the untamed wilderness.
But hey, it wasn't just kids hanging out at the library. During the 70s, working-class media actually utilized this wild man as a primal figure, resisting a brand new, highly polished consumerist society. Bigfoot was everywhere. He starred in cheap trade paperbacks, he was featured in men's adventure magazines. He really represented these traditional notions of rugged character and survival. It was a direct counter-image to the new, highly commercialized post-war American economy. Meanwhile, kids were using these very same monster stories to kind of navigate their own developing identities, rebelling just a little bit against their parents' safe, consumer-driven world.
Which brings us to Section 2, From Monster to Guardian. Check out this stark visual contrast here. On the left, our 70s monster. He's dangerous, primal, raw wilderness. But on the right, things shift. As the environmental movement really started gaining traction in the 1980s, our pop culture cryptid completely morphed. He went from being a frightening horror movie predator that you'd run away from into this softer, family-friendly, conscious protector of the forests. It's a total 180. And children's television shows and movies reflected this growing national conservation movement perfectly. Take the 1977 show Bigfoot and Wildboy, for instance. In it, Bigfoot actually adopts a young boy, and together they fight polluters to protect the forest. Then, flash forward to the 1987 film Harry and the Hendersons, and Bigfoot is fully portrayed as this super-friendly, misunderstood guardian of the wilderness. Suddenly, the narrative is that he actually needs our protection from modern civilization, a complete flip from the 70s. All right, Section 3, the digital Sasquatch. Fast forward to the new millennium, and the digital transition completely revolutionized this entire phenomenon. Suddenly, the search wasn't just guys wandering around in the woods with plaster casts. It empowered these massive online communities with crowdsourced tracking apps. We saw the emergence of organizations like the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, or the BFRO. They built these enormous online databases where literally anyone could submit and analyze field reports from all over the globe. It was a real game changer. And then you get data-driven platforms like the Bigfoot Mapping Project. These platforms are leveraging incredibly sophisticated ESRI and GIS mapping technologies. They're charting historical sighting data, environmental factors, and geographic trends. By capturing location info directly from mobile devices, they're actively attempting to standardize data collection to easily identify hotspots and patterns across the country. Now, what's really fascinating here is the paradox of it all. We are literally using rigorous, standardized data science, cloud-based software, and spatial tagging to meticulously monitor a creature that, well, technically lacks any conclusive biological proof. Just think about that for a second. The absolute highest-end tools of hard science are being used to map modern mythology in real time. It's pretty wild. That leads us right into Section 4, reality TV and podcasting. If you ever want to know just how powerful media is in shaping human perception, look no further than the reality TV boom. When Animal Planet premiered Finding Bigfoot in 2011, it triggered a massive uptick in reported sightings across the country. Psychologists actually attribute this to the predictive brain. Basically, our minds convince us we see what we want to see. It's a media effect that is remarkably similar to the 200% increase in UFO sightings that happened right during the peak years of the TV show The X-Files. The takeaway? Media heavily dictates the monsters we see in the woods. And meanwhile, modern podcasts have essentially become our new digital campfires. Shows like Sasquatch Chronicles, Sasquatch Syndicate, Wild Things, and the Bigfoot Information Project, they all act as this massive folkloric transmission system. They provide a safe, judgment-free space where believers can share highly structured oral narratives without any fear of societal ridicule. Podcasting breathes fresh life into these traditions. It shares them on a mass scale and allows researchers to watch the folklore evolve in real time right through our headphones. And speaking of evolution, as we get better cameras, everyone has a 4K camera in their pocket now, the lack of physical proof becomes a lot harder to explain, right? So the lore has mutated yet again into what the community actually calls the woo mutation. To rationalize the lack of evidence in such a high-tech age, modern stories now frequently include straight-up science fiction traits. We're talking telepathy or mind speak and invisibility cloaking. Actually, scratch that. It's more like a complete ideological split, because this has caused some serious friction between the grounded scientific researchers and the folks who are fully embracing these new paranormal traits. Finally, Section 5, the modern lore cycle. So drawing all this evidence together, the historian Joshua Bubas really hits the nail on the head here. He sums it up perfectly, noting that the Bigfoot phenomenon takes on its own momentum simply because it is a media icon. Ultimately, Bigfoot is less of a biological mystery and much more of a sociological mirror. He's a highly adaptable symbol that just easily conforms to whatever our current culture's hopes, anxieties, and technologies happen to be. So, the absolutely crucial point to remember is this. Whether he's a primal 70s monster representing working-class resistance to consumerism, an 80s guardian of the environment, or a modern digital data point sitting in a GIS mapping app, Bigfoot's survival relies entirely on his enduring flexibility as modern folklore. His true power isn't biological, it's 100% cultural. We've tracked him from rural California newspapers to the silver screen and straight into global digital databases. Which leaves us with one really provocative thought to take away. As artificial intelligence, deepfakes, and entirely new digital technologies emerge, what will the next generation's Bigfoot look like? How is that lore cycle going to spin next? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Until next time, keep your eyes on the woods and, well, on your screens.